Welcome to today's Flexi webinar. Today, our presenter is going to be Aaron Clapp, Director of All Training here at SAI. And today he's going to be talking about auto-serialization in Flexi. And we'll have that presentation for about 20 to 30 minutes or so, and then we'll open it up for questions. So if you think of anything during the presentation, just go ahead and type it in the chat window or after. It can be about auto-serialization or just any questions you had about Flexi in general. And we'll answer as many of those as we can, and we will be recording today's webinar. So as usual, we will upload it to our SAI YouTube channel, and we'll send everyone a link to the recording. So if you want to review it later, you want to share it with someone else, we will send everyone a link to that recording. And I think that's just about it. So Aaron, take it away.
All right. Okay, so we got auto-serialization today. So one of the things that that Flexi kind of does really well is creating numbered and named patterns out of a generic sort of graphic here. So as we go through, we want to just talk about some different things that'll help you kind of make the most out of the auto-serialization. There are some techniques and things that specifically that we want to talk about. Of course, we want to talk about the auto-serialize option, but we also want to kind of go over some of the unique text options that you're going to want to use to kind of make sure that your auto-serialization does what you'd expect it to do. So first of all, we're just going to take a look at this graphic here, and we're just going to change out some of the things that are in here in order to make everything kind of work the way that we want it to. So I imported this graphic in, and of course I didn't really have the font for it, so it just converted it to lines and arcs. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this text here. We're going to use this kind of shell as our example, and I'm going to add in some text, and we'll just use a regular Arial font. In this case, it doesn't really matter at the moment. So what we're going to start out with is an example of some room numbers. So I'm just going to put in here room number, and then I'm just going to put in 100. All right, so we're going to grab this, and it's going to be important for us to kind of set everything up that we want to set up in this first file. So we're going to want to set up our spacing, our text, and all that kind of stuff ahead of time, so that when we go about this later, we kind of know what we want to do. So for example, here it's going to be important that anything that you want to replace in the auto serialize option that you keep it as text. So if you convert these to lines and arcs, then the auto serialization no longer recognizes that as an object to be replaced, because it no longer contains that element of text, and so it can't recognize what it is. It just recognizes it a line or arcs or whatever. So I've typed this up in here, and what I'm going to do is I think I'm just going to highlight. Well, first of all, I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to grab this whole thing down here below and make sure that it's grouped, because I really don't want to change any of this. All I want to really change is this. I'm going to hit Control-G, group that. I'm going to drag the text back in, and then I'm going to align it real quick. So I'll do it this way. I can right-click and align, or I can also get it expanded by going Arrange, Align, and then we've got a bunch more in case you want to do it to the page and whatnot. I'm going to say let's do it both centers, then that puts it right in the middle for me. So the other thing I can do here is I can now highlight this. So I'm going to highlight the text and the graphic. It's important that you highlight everything. Nothing is left behind. And we're going to go to Arrange and Auto Serialize. So we're going to do a real easy one this time, and then we'll kind of start working into some of the other features and some of the other things that you want to take into consideration. So one of the things here that actually, before we do that, I'm gonna go ahead and take this font here, or this text, and I'm going to set my paragraph settings to align center. What this is going to do, and this is important that we do this, when we set up our text options, we want to make sure that we do this ahead of time. So in this case, I want the room, as it changes number, to scale from the middle out. I don't want it to start from here and then have ones that are shorter and longer and that kind of thing. I want them to all be centered in the middle. And the best way to do that is center your original text, select that text, go into your paragraph settings, and set your alignment to center. So that's going to be a kind of an important one as we create bigger numbers that eventually, go past the 3 digits. You want to make sure that they keep center, and that's the way to do that. So we'll go auto-serialize. I'm going to choose my number of copies. This is fairly obvious, so we're just going to say maybe 20. I'm going to say columns. Why don't we do, 10 columns? Or let's do, instead of 10, let's do 8. This is column spacing, so gaps and stuff between each copy. And then we have our options here for the text replacement. So I want to replace the 100 with a different number. And so I'm going to select that, and it's going to highlight blue. I can select multiples of these if I want to, or click them again to unselect them. We'll talk about this data file here in a minute and how to set that up. But for now, we're just going to hit next. We'll leave that blank. We don't need to type anything in here, really. All we really need to do is hit auto-serialize. This will bring up the serialization. It'll give you an option of whether you want to serialize by a character or by numeric. So in this case, I already have room number 100 here. I want it to start at 101 and increment by 1. Hit OK. And now we have a complete list of 1 through 20. Now this is going to be used to create these graphics. So if I hit finish now at this point, this is going to create all those graphics that we needed so that we've got each one of them. And you'll notice that even though we've got some letters that are larger, some that are smaller, like the 1 is thinner than the 0, the 3 is a little bit bigger, the 2 is a different size. No matter what the size of the letter, they're all centered for us. And that's because we set up the original one to be centered in the middle. Now, this is going to play a really important role if you have really varying sizes of graphics and names or other things that you're putting into this. So real easy, this allows me to create a numbered sequence without having to come in here, type in new numbers every single time for every single one. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to go ahead and delete these, and we'll just kind of start over. All right, so I can do this numerically as well. So let's just grab this, for example, and just show a quick example of the same thing. So we can grab this here. Next, auto-serialize. We can do it by character and hit OK. And you can see here, it'll go through the alphabet. If we decide to advance it more than one, it'll do AA, BB, and so on and so on. It'll kind of increase those. So you hit finish. You get the same thing. And noticed how, despite the fact that I had the 100 here, when it replaced it with each one, again, we're maintaining our alignment to the center because of the way we set up our original one. So that's kind of going to be the real big thing in terms of planning when you create your auto-serialization, is going and making sure that you have everything set up correctly. So let's take a few examples here. We're actually going to pivot to the data file, and we'll see what kind of things can happen when we don't set it up the way we want to. So we're just going to do this. We're going to say, let's say that this is a graphic. We're just going to put first name and last name. So I'm going to grab my text icon here. We'll just say first, last. Okay, so this is, we've set this to center. So we've got this aligned to the center. We've got our text here. This is great. So we're all set. We highlight this. We go to auto-serialize. And let's, in this case, let's go ahead and bring in a data file. Now, what we're going to do is, if I bring in a data file, let's make the columns 4 here. And I'm going to select the things that I want in the order that I need them to be placed. So for example, in my data file, I have set up for a first and a last name. And let's show you how that looks. So here's a simple list of names that I've created. Now, basically, this is a tab delimited file. So that basically means that there's one tab in between the two columns here. And I've set up my first name and my last name. And I've got a set of names here separated by one tab. So I've got some really short names like Bill West, Aaron Clapp, my name. And then we've got some bigger, longer names, Alexander Hamilton and George Washington. So those are bigger names that are going to be more of a challenge to fit inside of our little constraints here. So this is just created as a text file. I'm using a program called Notepad++. You can just use your regular Notepad inside of your installed Windows. You don't have to use Notepad++. And then just save it as a .txt file. That's all you really have to have and everything. You can use the first line of your file for delimiting or telling the software what, so you have an organization to what's going on here. So what we're going to do now is we are going to set up the names in here. So the way that you have these set up is you want to select them in the order that you have these. So if we had a tab here, 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 and here, you'd want to select the characters in the order that you have them in your file. So in this particular case, because I have first and last set up this way, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say first and last. I'm going to click them in that order. I don't want to click last first and then first last. I want to do it first, last, because this is the order that I want them to be in. Otherwise, they might get flipped around on you. Okay, so then we're going to choose our file. So I'm going to say browse, and we're just going to go to text file on the desktop. And I'm going to say, ignore the first row in the file. Because I put this in here, this is for my reference. This is not necessarily one of the decals that I want to create. I'm going to go ahead and just ignore that first line because that's for my use only. I'm going to hit next. It's going to give you then it's going to populate the things that I had in here. So if you look here, you can see that it selected first and last, because that's the two words that we had in here, and then this is the information that it's filled in under these two sections. So let's go ahead and just hit finish, and let's just see what happens. Okay, so we've got a problem here. So you can kind of see that we've got these two here that, yes, they are centered, but they're going way beyond our letter size. This is not obviously going to work for us. We've got one over here that's just barely passed. You can't control what's going to happen with these texts, and so you have to be able to figure out what we're going to do. So let's go ahead and delete that, and then let's take a look. What can we do to this particular setup so that this is going to work the way we want it to? Okay, so let's just take this. We're going to click this here, and I'm going to go to my paragraph settings in Design Central, and I'm going to choose the full justify. Now, you've got several different options in here. I've got character and word spacing. I've got word spacing only, character width, and character size. Let's just choose the character word spacing, and then let's just tell it to fit it to a width. And I want to say, let's do 24. I already pre-measured this, and it's about 24 inches about where I want this to be. This is kind of a big example, but that's okay. So I'm going to hit OK. And now you can kind of see what it's going to do. It's going to try and fit that into that area. So I'm going to say, OK. It's going to adjust the spacing so that it looks even. So now that what I need to do is I need to go grab this again, and I just need to align it to the center, just like that. All right, so now let's take this look again one more time and just see what happens when we do the same thing over again. First and last. Let's just do number of columns. Let's just do 2. Make that a little easier to see. Finish. Okay, so now this is a slightly different instance. So this is just an example that I wanted to show you of what happens when we do different things. So now in this case, yes, it did space them out. So you can see some of them are a little more spaced out. It kind of fills in the graphic. But then you got other ones here that just got completely smushed. These 2 longer ones, again, are being a real problem for us. And so we're gonna take this one more step and go a little bit farther here. So we'll just get rid of those. Let's go ahead and grab our text. This time, which should fix the issue, we're going to go to our paragraph settings, and we're going to say character size. I'm going to say compression only and apply equal to all lines. Click OK. So now what this does is this maintains my spacing. It doesn't stretch it out, but it's going to adjust the size of the text as the name gets larger and it can no longer fit within inside of the graphic. So let's highlight this. AutoSerialize. Whoops. Double clicked on my mouse there. We'll do our first name, last name. Ignore, same deal. Number of columns 2. Hit next and finish. So now we can see that things have been adjusted a little bit. Now, I think we could still do some work in terms of our alignment with the text, but now you can see that it's shrunk down the text a little bit so that it now fits within inside of our graphic. So our George Washington, our Alexander Hamilton are reduced in size so that they still fit in the middle where we want them to be. And the smaller names get a bigger text size, but they fit within the graphic allowed. So this is something that's really important when it comes to creating your graphics before getting into the AutoSerialize, is that you want to make sure and set up all of your settings ahead of time. And there's all kinds of things that you can do here. You could change settings in here for your text size and type and things like that, your scale. You can tell it whether you want it to go left to right, up and down. So there's all kinds of settings, and it's important to kind of think of all these different scenarios. And of course, if we come in here, we can have it just do certain things. If we know that it's going to act in a certain way, we can say, okay, word spacing only, or maybe character width only is all we want to adjust. So we can try and see what that does here. So character width. So each one of these settings will do something slightly different in terms of the end result. So in this case here, you can kind of see what it did is it kind of just stretched the letters and kind of smushed them down so that they're in there. So they look a little bit different. So in this case, this might actually be the better option in order to maintain the spacing and where it is for these longer names. So you can kind of see now where you might adjust some of these things in the original and then just do some testing with it and kind of see how this will affect your spacing, your positioning, and all that kind of thing when you go ahead and set these up. Now, if you want to, there's going to be certain times when maybe you run into a circumstance where there's not much you can do about it, or maybe it's some kind of weird circumstance and you have maybe one or just two slightly different options or two slightly different things where you're just like, man, I don't like the way that turned out. It's just that one name. What do we do? Well, I can then just grab this. You'll notice that when I select one of them, they group together. So I'm going to just hit Control-U to ungroup. And now I can select each one of these individually. Now, they are grouped together individually as well. So I can say Control-U again, and that'll ungroup it again. So now I can come in here and say, well, let's grab this guy and maybe we'll stretch it. Maybe I'd like to fill it out a little bit more, or maybe we use a different font for this guy. So maybe we try and go in here, instead of using here, we use a slightly different font or something like that. You can go in here and adjust this. So you could make some changes like that to one of these individually, and that would really help in that regard. You can go in and edit one, and then you're ready to print. So this is something that it's very flexible, very easy to use. Just a little bit of planning ahead of time can make a huge difference in terms of how you set things up, your fonts, your colors, things like that, your spacing. I want to say that usually your biggest thing that you're going to run into is going to be character spacing. And so when you go into Design Central, this is probably going to be the place that you're going to be making your most adjustments to, whether you want to flip it or you want to change the text style or the size, or you want to go in here and you want to make adjustments to the way that it's applied in terms of spacing and justifying, things like that. And that's going to be your biggest thing. So those changes there are going to be real key to making sure that these work out the way that you need to, so that you're not going back and editing a ton of these all at once. This will affect all of your different kinds of text too. So for example, one of the things to also consider is that the AutoSerialize, and we're kind of getting to the end here, but your AutoSerialize also works with objects that are barcodes, text on a curve, things like that. So let's just take, for example, let's just do like a QR code. So text to QR. So if I create a QR code, and we'll just slap that right here, and let's zoom out here. Let's get these out of here. Let's grab this. It's, even though that's a QR code, it still recognizes that that's first and last name. So if I hit next, finish again, it creates a unique and special barcode for each name, first name, last name. So if I go ahead and let's ungroup this, and to kind of show you that, let's grab this one right here, ungroup it. I'm just going to grab that barcode, or this QR code, and we'll change it to text. So now you can see that that actually generated a QR code with that information. So if you had to do sequenced QR codes or Braille, it also will work with Braille. Any of your text options here. So Braille, barcodes, QR codes, data matrix codes, all of those codes will work with your auto serialization. And so it makes it really powerful to do a lot of different stuff. The applications for this are limitless. You can also do text on an arc. You can do text on a path. You can do all that kind of stuff, and it'll replace and do all that for you. All you have to do is set up your parameters like we did here ahead of time with the Design Central, and you should be good to go. So that is AutoSerialize in a nutshell. I know that there's a lot of other things that you can do here as well. You can also edit the file right here if you want to do that. You can also go in here and you can export this list. Obviously, we already have this list created, but if you wanted to export this list, you could do that here. You can also export the numeric list. So let's say you generate a numeric list, you want to export that list instead of have to type them out, you can export that as well. So there's a few other options there that you can do. If I click edit file, basically it just pulls up the file that I used, and I can make some changes to it, save it, close it, and then reload the file, and it'll bring those in. So great way to create serialized decals. Really powerful tool. Saves you a ton of time, especially if you're doing this kind of thing often. This is a really powerful tool that we think has got a lot of opportunity and potential for you. So, are there any questions on any of this or anything about Flexi today?
Looks like we had a couple questions during the presentation. First, Yolanda wanted to know if you can move the print after if it's not in the center enough.
Yeah, you can. I think we illustrated that just a little bit, and let me know if that kind of covered it. But you can move anything after the fact. So once you create the the entire auto serialize, it's kind of just grouped together. So if you want to change anything individually, you can. Now for the group, probably not. So if I wanted to change, for example, I ran this once and I wanted to change it so the barcode is always in the middle, I would just delete these and then rerun it and reposition it or do something like that. But if you find, for example, one that's maybe like just slightly wrong and you don't want to redo the whole thing just for that one, you can just click it, ungroup it several times, and then get to that part, make some adjustments, and then you're good to go.
Okay, thank you. And I had another question from Gary. Said, would this still work on the text if it had effects added, such as arc or flag?
Yeah, this should also keep those as well. So any effects like text on an arc or anything like that should also apply.
Perfect. And then Fran said, you mentioned that the data needs to stay as text, but is there a way to bring in barcodes that have been sent to us as PNG images for the unique list of numbers, or do we need to create the barcode in Flexi for it to be recognized?
So in that particular case, because unfortunately a PNG file is just it's just a series of pixels. It doesn't really have any data attached to it in and of itself. Technically it does, yes, but it doesn't have any data that we can actually read. When it's pulled in, obviously that barcode means something to the when in that particular arrangement. But unfortunately, we can't really draw any data from it. We would have to create those inside of Flexi. Or if you have the customer, I would just request, what their specifications for that needs to be. Because it's not in an editable form that we can really do anything with, just because it's just an arrangement of pixels at that point. Whereas these data matrix codes right here, these are actually scalable, editable. I can change the data inside of it. I can change the text, all the bit data and all that kind of stuff. So it would have to be kind of created in Flexi to kind of do what you're thinking there.
Okay. But I guess you could always scan the QR code and see what the data is and then create that in Flexi, right? Like if it's
Correct.
just
Yeah.
a URL, that would be an easy enough to create.
Right.
Okay. And let's see, Brian said, you mentioned converting text to lines and curves if the font is not present. Can that be set as a default?
I don't think so. What happened, it depends on, so Flexi has several different ways of doing that. So what happens is, depending on the type of file that it does, when I import that particular file, it asks me what I want to do with it. Um, if you have an older file of Flexi and that happens, you'll actually see the option to convert to curves, lines, and arcs, or it might actually just ask you to import that. And I could actually just show you. So we'll go File, Import. This is how it imported for me. So if I import this, place it. So in this particular instance, sometimes you'll see a second option here that says convert to curves or lines and arcs, or I can't remember the exact verbiage, but there's an option here for that. And basically what it does, it takes that font just converts it to lines and arcs. Some files it doesn't do that with, and it has to do with how the file was created in the metadata that's in the file originally. I think files that are of a certain age don't have, or they have missing information, and so it's not able to convert them to lines and arcs. So in this case, what we just have to do is we have to say, okay, just replace all the fonts in that file with something else. And so in this case, I just chose Arial, but I could choose, any font that I want. I can see a sample of that font, hit OK, and it'll bring that font in. Which in this case, it looks like, oh, there we go. Not sure what's going on with that O there, but anyway, so we can change that out as we want to. So you'll see that option appear and disappear depending on the file that you're importing and kind of what that situation is.
Okay, thank you. And then Bob said, soft proof. How do you know if it's on or off? Doesn't show a check mark under the view tab.
So soft proof, usually, if you click on it, the way this menu works is you don't see a checkbox, but you see how some of these have a blue highlighted area behind them. That means that particular option is open. So if you look at the soft proof, you see that it's highlighted blue over here in this little section. That means that it's on. If you click off of it, now it just turns gray. You can also see the button up here, which this one's probably a little bit harder to see depending on your monitor and your display preferences. But if you click on it, you can see that it's a little bit depressed or it's pushed in. That means that it's on. And if you click it off, it's kind of flat. Then that means that it's off. So this will be on, a little bit depressed. You can kind of see that it looks like it's sunken in compared to the other icons. That's a good way to do it. But if you go by the little blue icon, that's what kind of indicates to you what toolbars are on or off. There was another question about the Excel and the Word documents. That particular question, yeah. So it basically is going to take a Word doc, a .txt file is what it's looking for. So if we hit Browse, a tab delimited .txt. So you can create that in any one of those programs. So Excel, Word, any word processing program that you can buy or that you have, you should be able to export as a .txt file. That's a pretty generic and common thing. Even for like Excel, you should be able to export as a .txt file. So it's we kept it kind of generic that way so that most applications can export it.
Okay, perfect. And Renee said, Flexi windows were fuzzy with my new monitor. I increased the resolution, but the icons are very small. How do I make them larger without losing clear images?
So what you can do, and again, this is kind of one of those things that we don't have a way to adjust the particular size of the icons inside of Flexi. It's kind of based off of your resolution. One of the things that you can try, and again, unfortunately, this is not a real great solution, but if you go to your settings and we go to display, here we go to display, you can set up, okay, let's make this a little bigger here. So we can go over here and we can set our magnification. So this changes the text, apps, and other items. So what this basically does, if you set this to 100%, it goes down to a really tiny shrunk down version. All of your icons are tiny. You can increase this and sometimes it will help. The only problem is this is an implementation inside of Windows. And so certain applications may or may not always play well with this resolution because it's just kind of like a Band-Aid, so to speak. It's just saying, hey, take this, magnify it 150%, and let's see. I really struggle with this particular option because what it does is it actually makes some of your icons look blurry in some of your applications, and then others it won't magnify them at all, and things like that. It's kind of inconsistent. So unfortunately, that's kind of a struggle there. You can change the resolution, that'll help. You're still going to get the detail of a high resolution monitor, even if you have it on a lower resolution. You still have that more pixels, so you can change resolution. You can increase that magnification, and hopefully a combination of those two things will help a little bit with the icons.
Alrighty. And then let's see, another question from Daniel said, having an issue where gradients suddenly shift position after a resize, or if I move a graphic and undo, the position and size of the gradient will change randomly. The gradient settings are set to transform with object. Any suggestions?
So what we probably want to do is take a look at this specifically. And just kind of see how that's interacting. I do know that sometimes when you apply gradient, for example, this option here, this edit gradient, is can sometimes be tied to its location in space. So that would be one of those ones where we'd want to take a look at it and just see the file and kind of see how you're working with it and see what's going on. It should move like it does here, should maintain that as it goes with it. And if it's not, then we want to see kind of how that's happening. That might be a good one for tech support to look into and just kind of examine, because that could, there's probably some specific circumstances that are causing that to happen. But yeah, we definitely want to take a look at that and just kind of see how that's working.
Okay, so will do. Thanks. Yeah, thank you, Aaron, for going over all of that.
No problem.
Does anyone else have any other questions? If not, we will go ahead and wrap it up for today. And we will be having our next webinar will be next month. What is today? This month's February, so the next one will be in March, and that will be March 9th. And we'll be talking about the cloud window tools, and we'll actually be updating the timing. So our next webinar will be at 10:30 Mountain Time, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. There we go. So we'll be changing it a half hour later than normal, and we'll be adjusting to that going forward. We hope you all can join us for the next webinar. We do appreciate you coming today. Thank you, Aaron, for all the information, and have a great rest of your day.
All right, talk to you guys later.